If you're just waking up, the first major rewrite of the U.S. tax code in 31 years, clearing a major hurdle.
The ayes are 51, the nays are 48.
You know who's really excited about this?
Who?
The President of the United States. He tweeted this at 2 o'clock this morning.
The United States Senate just passed the biggest in history tax cut.
FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe was grilled for more than 7 hours.
You're talking about a lawyer whose wife took $700,000 from a Clinton crony, and he refused to recuse himself.
At least a dozen people are dead and 7 Americans are hurt following a tragic bus crash in Mexico.
A major publication alleging the Obama administration may have sabotaged its own government investigators' efforts to stop the Hezbollah terror group.
The Obama administration put everything secondary so that we didn't rock the boat with the Iranians because of the Iran deal.
And right here, this is when Santa left a letter in the Christmas tree where the kids were told that they could get a dog. You know, I know it's kind of an optical illusion. We're sitting in Midtown Manhattan, and there goes Santa and a train and stuff like that. And we have so many snowflakes falling on the big screens. I keep looking outside thinking, wait a minute, I thought it was snowing outside. It's just a picture to remind you that we're in the Wednesday before Christmas.
This political season has been crazy, as you know, the last 2 years, let's say. Every time I hear the word snowflake, I used to think of Christmas.
No, that's all I
Now I think of like college campuses with bubbles.
Where are the liberals? Oh, okay.
Right.
Real snowflakes. But, you know, we just talked about gifts under the tree.
Yeah.
Send us your favorite gift you've ever gotten under the tree. Friends at foxnews.com. We've shared a few of ours. We want to know yours.
Indeed. In the meantime, President Trump got his big gift last night.
Yes, he did.
This is a Fox News alert. Cutting your taxes. The Senate making history, passing sweeping tax reform for the American people.
This, the first major rewrite of the tax code in 31 years, and we could be just hours away from a huge win for the Republican Party.
And for America. Yep. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington, D.C., where there's still a little bit of work left to be done before the president can sign the bill. Griff, good morning.
Good morning, guys. This is indeed headed to the president's desk within hours, many expect, but there is a little more work to be done. What happened was the Senate had to strike some provisions from the House bill so it would fit their budget rules, one of which included changing the title of the bill itself. But now the House is expected to vote again sometime around noon today on the new version, and it is expected to pass without issue. Thus, history was made when the Senate passed this straight down party lines, 51-48, shortly before 1 a.m., all Republicans for it, all Democrats against it. Afterwards, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying this strengthens America.
If you look at the last 8 years, America has consistently underperformed. Not 1 year at 3% growth, not one. That's not the best America can do. We're confident this will work, and we're prepared to take that argument to the American people.
Democrats slammed at Minority Leader Schumer, saying it's actually messing the country up.
83% of the middle class will either pay more in taxes or get little but crumbs. Is that what you intended? Is that this great bill that's helping the middle class? Absolutely not. This is serious stuff. We believe you're messing up America.
Well, here's a quick look at what this means. Now, 80% of Americans will receive a tax cut, according to the Tax Policy Center. It cuts that corporate rate, as we've heard, from 35% to 21%. It drops the top individual rate to 37%, and it repeals Obamacare's individual mandate. And if the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady is right, guys, it means fatter paychecks in February. Democrats, by the way, intend to use this against Republicans in next year's elections. We'll see how that goes.
We will indeed. All right, Griff, thank you very much. Join us from his perch over the Capitol. The House has got to vote on it again later today because there was a snafu. They've apparently got a bunch of crazy rules in the Senate. And,
you think?
And this particular bill that the House passed didn't sync up with the Senate version. So under the Byrd rules and reconciliation, they're going to do it again.
Back to the House.
Yeah.
It will likely be the same. Well, the president pointing out what a lot of people were thinking late last night. I think he tweeted at 1 or 2 in the morning.
He did.
Saying this. He said, the United States Senate just passed the biggest in history tax cut and reform bill. Terrible individual mandate from Obamacare repealed. Goes to the House tomorrow morning for final vote. If approved, there will be a news conference at the White House at approximately 1 p.m., which, of course, you can see here on the Fox News.
So in one fell swoop, he got the tax bill and the mandate, so you don't have to pay. If you don't want to pay for Obamacare, you don't have to pay into it, and you're not penalized. all in one vote.
It is a bigger corporate tax cut than either of the Bushes got during their presidencies, and he did it without losing a single Republican senator, which was key because over the last month or two, people have been going, okay, I don't know about Jeff Flake, I don't know about John McCain, I don't know about Susan Collins. In the end, they were all there. The lone exception was John McCain, who is out in Arizona for the Christmas holiday. He, of course, recovering from brain cancer surgery.
He said he would come back to D.C. if he had to, if
Didn't need
there
him.
was a tiebreaker.
President Trump also doing with unprecedented resistance from every quarter of this country, from the fake news media to never-Trumpers to the Democrats to, as we've learned out more and more, his own intelligence services, the FBI and the DOJ. I mean, everyone has been out to get this guy. You would imagine Democrats may have voted for this if there was a President Jeb Bush, if it just was, you know, a little bit more of a moderate guy, maybe they would have come on board. They were going to be against him no matter what. Still got the votes in the Senate and the House. This is politically significant, but much more importantly, our economy and our country. And American taxpayers will benefit from the fact of one simple principle. President Trump believes you should keep your money. Right. And it shouldn't, more should not be held at the federal government to be told how to spend it. It's a basic principle that conservatives have stood for.
Can you tell our local lawmakers that in these high-tax states? Because we need more money in our pockets, and our taxes are not going to go down because our local taxes are so expensive in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut.
Listen, I was watching one of the other news channels yesterday, and I was that bill scared me. Hearing what they said about how it's going to completely hurt the middle class and things like that. But I've read the bill, and you know what? I think it's a little disinformation.
One more point to make. The party of John F. Kennedy is dead. John F. Kennedy cut taxes from 91 to 65% for individuals. He cut the corporate tax rate. He cut it for the lowest income bracket as well. Not a single Democrat voted for this bill. Right. This is a party invested in tax and spend, invested in resistance. And I think if once they see the effects of this bill and what it could do for the economy, there may be some regrets, especially some of those senators in states that President Trump won overwhelmingly that are up for
even if you live in one of the high tax states, you can still expect for more companies to open up here. That's more jobs, more money that goes back into our economy. The deficit goes down, hopefully, and people are spending more.
Sure. I mentioned at the top of this hour, President Trump got his Christmas wish. Somebody who was really happy. You saw him with the big gavel. Was Speaker Paul Ryan.
I noticed that, too. It was huge.
No kidding. He's going to be joining us in about 10 minutes, and we're going to talk to Senator Ted Cruz. He will be live in the next hour.
And we'll get some video of that gavel for you. There it is. Wait.
I mean, he hit it so hard that it fell off the table.
off.
Yeah. And so, you know, liberals, of course, are pushing it out there, saying it's indicative of this bill that will hurt the American people, or he was just really excited because he's been working.
There it is.
Watch this.
There
Boom!
it is.
Hammer
Shuts
time.
it down, and it's still, there you go.
If you were watching Bret Baier's show last night, he had a great live interview with Mitch McConnell, and it was news-breaking because he revealed that the government would not shut down over, you know, come the deadline at a minute after midnight on Saturday.
The government's going to run out of money.
So he said no to a government shutdown, and he said no, there will not be any DACA legislation done this year. Now, we're starting to put the pieces together. That makes sense because it turns out yesterday there was, over the last week actually, the chief of staff for the White House, John Kelly, has been meeting secretly with lawmakers.
He's been meeting behind closed doors to talk to senators about this the border security bills. And he's saying, what do we need to do? We need more fencing. Let's talk about all this. Let's talk about DACA. Let's try to work together to come up with a package to fix for a legislative fix for the deferred action for childhood arrivals.
That's right. So Senator Jeff Flake tweeted this yesterday, who's been a fierce opponent of this president. He tweeted, bipartisan DACA bill will be on the Senate floor in January. And for those who believe in the Trump agenda, there's no one you'd want in the room more than John Kelly. Someone who is a believer in the wall, is a believer in the rule of law, who doesn't want to give away to illegals, who recognizes the complex environment of the Dreamer situation, but is not going to give away the farm without making sure there's real border investment as an exchange.
Well, and that's good. And so behind the scenes, there's some negotiating going on. You've got the administration saying, okay, we want a wall. And this is what we want. Bing, bing, bing,
bing,
bing,
bong, bing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, across the table, you got the Democrats and some Republicans saying, this is what we want.
Bing, 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 bong, bing, bing.
We should play that sound. That's one of the best.
I think most Americans, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, probably most people, I would say, would think that the DACA kids should be allowed to stay in the country. I mean, how do you? It's not their fault that their parents broke the law and brought them over.
But don't do that without making sure that you have protocols so that it doesn't happen again. Something like chain migration, sure, the Dreamers should stay, but they shouldn't then be able to bring the next 25 people with them.
And Dreamers should be vetted. If they're here, they need to make sure.
And they have been. But at the same time, a lot of these, some of the terror attacks we've seen recently have come through chain migration. How do we be smart about that? So there's some great chips this administration has on the table to make a common sense deal, as you talked
There's
about.
There's a commercial that airs on Fox News. I don't know if it's just in the New York area, but it's like, this guy got in on chain migration and said, then he brought this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, and then that guy brought this guy and this guy, and then it's like a tree that just has branches, and you look and it zooms out, and it's all these hundreds of people that came in because of that one person.
And the president made it very clear in the last couple of weeks he would like to see the end of chain migration. So behind the scenes, stuff is going on regarding that. Meanwhile, it is 7-11 here in New York City, and Jillian's got the headlines.
That's right. Good morning. Following breaking news, guys, so let's get you caught up, starting with this Fox News alert. At least a dozen people are dead and 7 Americans hurt following a tragic bus crash in Mexico. The tour bus flipping over, bringing cruise ship passengers to the Mayan ruins. Now, it's unclear what caused that crash, but a witness says there were swerve marks on the road. We do know a child is among the dead. 18 people are injured. Also breaking right now, ISIS threatening to launch bloody attacks on New Year's Eve. The brutal terror group circulating this disturbing propaganda poster with the message that says, quote, "Wait for us on your year parties," along with 2 heavily armed jihads. This chilling warning follows a similar threat showing Santa Claus next to a box of dynamite in New York's Times Square. New overnight, the capital of South Carolina becoming the first U.S. city to ban gun bump stocks. The Columbia City Council approving a measure making it illegal to use that device that can make guns fire more rounds in faster succession. Last month, Massachusetts became the first state to ban the devices. Bump stocks have been under much scrutiny since October, when a gunman used that device to murder 58 people on the Las Vegas Strip. That's a look at your headlines, guys, and I'm sure that's not the first that we're going to be hearing of that.
That's my hometown. Yep. That's the first city to do this, right?
Yeah. All right. Jillian, thank you. Thank you. Meanwhile, the deputy director of the FBI grilled on the Hill over those anti-Trump texts sent from some high-ranking officials at the FBI. What went on behind closed doors, and why should President Trump keep Robert Mueller in place? Alan Dershowitz is live next.
And Sarah Huckabee Sanders is used to taking tough questions, but not usually like this.
I actually want to ask about UFOs. Several media reports this week disclosed that... Sorry.
I was going to say. Her response is the best thing you're going to hear all day, probably.
Out of this world. The House Intel Committee grilled FBI Director Andrew McCabe right there in the center of the screen for nearly 8 hours yesterday behind closed doors amid concerns of political bias within the FBI. This, as our next guest makes a case for why President Trump does not need to fire special counsel Robert Mueller over those collusion concerns. Here with more is longtime Democrat, Harvard Law professor emeritus, and the author of that book, Trumped Up. Alan Dershowitz joins us today from South Florida. Alan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You know, there are a lot of people on the political right who have said, you know, Robert Mueller, he's overstepped his boundaries, he's really got to go. You say absolutely not, right?
I don't think so. I think that if I were the Trump administration's advisor, I'm not. I want to be clear. I'm an analyst here, but I'm giving you my 50 years of experience. I would play the refs. I would keep the pressure on Mueller. Mueller is very concerned about his reputation. He has been accused of conflict of interest, of not getting warrants, of using an improper source for a warrant. They have him where they want him. He'll probably want to lean over backwards now to make any close calls in favor of Trump. So I think it would be now foolish to try to fire him, which would create a political scandal, probably a move toward impeachment, although there'd be no justification for that. They should leave it be. If they want to keep the pressure on, keep the pressure on.
Well, Alan, don't you think the Trump team, the people who are able to speak out on television and elsewhere, are playing the refs at this point, saying, hey, this guy's got some problems. He hasn't done his team any favors by having a bunch of people who appear to be partisan on his team?
And he's playing right into their hands. I have to tell you, I had an enormous amount of respect for Mueller, having seen him up close when he was in Boston and in the government. He's not playing this effectively. He's being sloppy. When you're going after the President of the United States, you make sure your personnel are not overtly biased against the target. You call them all in and you say, are there any emails? Are there any messages that are going to be embarrassing? Show me everything.
Right.
And then the FBI agent, he should have come in and volunteered when he was appointed and said, let me show you these messages. You may not want me. And then not getting a warrant for thousands and thousands of emails from the transition team. They may eventually win, but it is not a black and white issue. It's a close question. You wear belt and suspenders when you're going after the president. You get a warrant.
That's a good way to put it. Meanwhile, you told our producer you were really outraged this morning over the story from, I believe, Politico, that the Obama administration deliberately undercut efforts to take down a drug cartel linked to Hezbollah to keep the Iran deal alive, right? Quickly.
If this is true, number one, it shows that presidents do interfere with Justice Department decisions about who to go after. Number two, it shows how far Obama was willing to go to get this terrible deal that was so one-sided, that Congress opposed, that the American people opposed, and he's prepared to make this kind of deal with the devil to get it. Shame on him.
Yeah, no, if you're right, if the story is true. Alan Dershowitz, thank you very much for joining us today from Miami. Enjoy the weather down there.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate just passed historic tax reform. Now it's up to the House to get it to the president's desk. They got a little tweaking to do this morning. House Speaker Paul Ryan joins us live coming up next. And we'll ask him about that gavel moment going viral. It's hammer time.
Yeah.
It is time now for your news by the numbers. First, one vote. That is all it took for Democrat Shelley Simmons to win her seat in the Virginia House of Delegates. The race was so close, they had to hold a recall. Next,
one vote? Yeah.
One vote. Nearly $500 million. That is how much is up for grabs in the Mega Millions and Powerball jackpots combined. The next Mega Millions drawing is on Friday, and the Powerball drawing is tonight. And finally, two, that is how many times the Georgia Dome is now imploded. The second round of explosions going off overnight at the former home of the Atlanta Falcons. Crews needed to bring down those last remaining pieces after the original blast that we had live on our show last month.
That didn't really work. Yeah. All right, well, a Fox News alert. Overnight, the Senate making history, passing the first major tax rewrite in 31 years. Now, it's up to the House to revote on the bill and get it to the president's desk today.
Joining right now on a very busy morning on Capitol Hill is House Speaker Paul Ryan. Mr. Speaker, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Steve, Ainsley, Pete. What happened to Brian? Did he sleep in this morning?
He's apparently out somewhere with his book.
Too much winning.
Mr. Speaker. Too much winning, exactly, just like you.
Too much winning.
Okay, so I saw you with the big hammer. I saw that it passed. So why do you have to redo it today?
Because we had such a good time yesterday, we just wanted to do it again today. Look,
we love that. Go ahead.
There are these bizarre Senate rules. I won't go into the details other than there are these bizarre Senate rules, and a couple of small, tiny provisions dropped out because of these bizarre Senate rules. We didn't think they should have dropped out, but they did. It doesn't really materially affect the bill very much. And so we will re-vote and pass it out again today.
Mr. Speaker, I mean, you were the chair of the Budget Committee. You've been passionate about tax reform for your entire time in the House. What did it feel like to hold that gavel? And you slammed it. We all saw it, and so hard that you lost it. What did that moment feel like for you?
I got a little carried away. You can see that. I was very excited. It was a very emotional time because I used to be, Jack Kemp was my mentor, and I've been working on this issue pretty much my adult life. Because I just feel so passionately that this is going to help get people from welfare to work. It's going to get people higher wages, better jobs. It's going to put the American economy in the lead in the global economy again. So I feel very passionate about it. I was a little passionate. I scared the heck out of the parliamentarian sitting next to me. And I almost broke the thing, but I just got a little excited.
Yeah. So what is your message for the people who live in the high tax states? Because, listen, as Americans, it's going to be great for our country if you look at the numbers, if you read the bill. But for the folks who are watching us that do live in the high tax states, how can you promise them? I mean, we were told the president was, running. He said everyone's taxes are going to go down. People voted for him for that reason. But in the high tax states, because of the local and state tax, That's not necessarily the case, and a lot of those folks are middle-class individuals.
Well, actually, if you actually run the numbers, Ainsley, and we've run a lot of numbers, the average taxpayer in every income group, including people in these high tax states, still get a tax cut.
Really?
Very high income people, perhaps if they have a very clever accountant and are using lots of deductions, maybe they'll see it differently. But the average taxpayer in every income group gets a tax cut everywhere. I would just tell people, go to fairandsimple.gop. That's the website that explains how this all works. And we did make some changes in this bill, in the final version, to try and accommodate some of those concerns in the high tax states. Number one, all tax rates go down. The top rate and every rate in between are lowered. So you get lower rates across the board. Number two, we double the standard deduction. That means you go to you can see our postcard. I like to bring this thing up. Still, nearly 9 out of 10 people in America will be able to do their taxes on the form the size of a postcard because they'll take that standard deduction. But also, we maintained a $10,000 tax deduction, not just for property taxes, which was the House bill, but also for state local income taxes. So you get to use that if you choose to do that, and the mortgage interest deduction is still largely maintained. So those things, in combination with doubling the child tax credit, lowering rates across the board, make just about every taxpayer whole. The vast, vast, vast majority of taxpayers. Is there somebody really wealthy with a good accountant that uses lots of deductions, and when we close loopholes, they lose some of those that may not see it that same way? Sure. But on average, everybody's going to benefit. The average tax cut for families, for your viewers, the median family of four in America is going to get a $2,059 tax cut.
That's great.
So that's real money for real people who are really struggling.
Indeed. Mr. Speaker, let me ask you about people in those high tax states. You know, some of the higher individuals with all those deductions and stuff might get a tax hike, but they would be few and far between, according to what you said. However, do you think ultimately the result of this tax cut bill is people in those high tax states, their state legislatures are going to have to do something about the high tax rate?
Yeah, that's the big argument, Steve, because, look, these numbers may not be exactly accurate, but what members of Congress, what conservatives see, is basically 46 states are paying higher federal taxes to subsidize higher state taxes in about 4 states. And so that's the point. It's really a fairness argument, which is, should states, people in states that have balanced budgets and limited governments and lean governments be paying higher federal taxes for those state governments that keep increasing taxes, keep increasing spending? And that's really the argument that's also at play here. And so that's a fair point.
Mr. Speaker, 50 years ago, a Democratic president cut income taxes from 91% to 65% in JFK. Yet yesterday, not
65 is still pretty high.
Still very high, but not a single Democrat voted for this yesterday. What does that say about the state of the Democratic Party? And also, will Republicans benefit in 2018 from this?
It's a really good question, Pete. Look, I'm a student of these things. I've studied these for years. Jack Kennedy, we don't have Jack Kennedy Democrats anymore. Jack Kennedy was saying rising tide lifts all votes, cut tax rates across the board. It's going to help the economy. You do not have Democrats saying that anymore. So the progressive left had basically gripped their party. I honestly thought at the end of the day, we might get maybe a Joe Manchin or some of these Democrats in the Senate from these red states that Donald Trump won. They all stuck with the progressive hard left against tax relief and tax reform. So I do think this is not in their interest, not only just politically, but just economically speaking. And when people see their withholdings go down in February, when they see their tax cut, that's going to change the view of this, because it's going to give us better jobs, higher wages, bigger paychecks, and a simplified system, and people are going to get their taxes cut. That's good for everybody, and I think they're going to regret not having supported it, at least some of them, I believe.
Okay, well, he's going to have the gavel in his hand again later on today.
And I'll try to be a little
We'll be watching. All right, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. I know that had to feel
Merry
good.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Thanks.
All right, moving on.
I hope all the House members didn't leave to go home for their Christmas breaks, because they got to come back.
It's true, or they'd be coming back for sure. All right, former Attorney General Eric Holder calling it a red line if the president fires Bob Mueller. Well, maybe a red line they would enforce. Just one problem. The president says he's not going to fire him. Should Holder really be talking, to my point, about red lines?
Well, he is. And you've seen what my house used to look like Christmas morning. Oh, that kid. All grown up now.
Grow up so fast.
We want to see your house. What's the best gift you ever received? We'll be right back, and we're going to show some of your pictures.
Friends at FoxNews.com. If you missed the After the Show yesterday, this is what you missed.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
You dance with the Rockettes. Come on. Dream by the fire. To celebrate the plans that we made. Walking in a winter wonderland.
There we are with Steve Amerson yesterday.
Well done,
and by the
guys.
way, this is the interesting thing. You know who works across the street?
Who?
The Rockettes.
Yeah, right. They do a lot better than we do.
Great impression.
We didn't make it. We didn't make the team. Don't go look at the list because we're not on it.
That was so much fun.
Thank goodness, because before that, you guys put me out there singing with him the whole song.
The whole song.
I didn't sing the whole song with it by
solo?
myself.
Yes.
So, you know, for the grand finale, they came out to do the.
Oh, so they just stole the
kick-line.
spotlight at the end. You did all the hard work.
I did
That's
all
what
the
she's
heavy
saying.
lifting.
Holy
Oh
cow.
my gosh! So
Anyway,
thanks for saving me.
Steve Amerson is the greatest
incredible.
Christmas
So good.
singer. He's got 2 albums out. Check it out on
I was
iTunes
listening
or
to it
wherever you buy
last night
music.
in my apartment, and I called my mom after the show. She said, Ainsley, it brought tears to my eyes. I was like, I know. We all were like fighting back the tears when he sang. He held that note.
I know,
Oh,
forever.
my goodness.
Unbelievable.
Gotta check
And what
him
about
out.
the
Steve
note that I
Amerson.
held for so long too?
You did great too.
That was
You
fantastic.
can buy Janice's album on.
Listen, you speak the truth.
Nowhere.
Maybe that's my New Year's resolution.
Well, you know, this morning, on this Wednesday before Christmas, we've been asking you to send us pictures of the greatest Christmas gift you ever got, and we got a lot.
This is from Brandy. It's from Christmas in 1981 with her sister and their gift, which was the Barbie townhouse.
I remember that.
Yes.
That is a winner.
My sister Kathy got that.
This
on
is
my list
Tara
this year.
with her brother and mom on Christmas, 1971.
Oh,
She
yeah,
appreciates
baby.
the
Look at
gift of
that.
her family.
Look at the lamp. We had lamps like that, and the shag carpet, and the yellow.
robe.
Right.
Wow.
And this,
Yeah, go ahead.
This
Joe.
is Glenn in Tennessee back in 1958 when he received his favorite President Army outfit.
Just like Pete.
I didn't know they had cameras in 1958.
Hey, stop it. Mary Ellen from Georgia remembers her favorite gift from 1965, twin baby dolls and a baby carrier.
Look at the tinsel. Do they make tinsel anymore?
No, because it's they say it's dangerous. Dogs can
Oh,
choke
for
on it.
goodness sake.
No.
That's what they say.
Snowflakes.
Everything's a
Get the
safety
tinsel out.
hazard these days. It's true.
Sorry.
Keep emailing us your
Keep 'em
pictures. Friends at foxnews.com. Your great gifts. We want to see them. The further back, the better. Can we get a photo before
We want some
1958?
shag carpet. Oh,
Yep.
even further.
Well, we got 58 on this one. You
Okay,
gotta
let's see how
try to
far
do better.
back we can go.
I like the 70s.
That's right.
I like the 70s too.
are good.
What color was the wallpaper or the paint color or your dishwasher or your dry clean? I mean, your
The
washer and dryer.
Dishwasher was
Army
avocado.
green, avocado.
Oh my gosh.
And by the way, and one other thing, Rockettes, we're still waiting.
Yeah, right?
We'll be waiting as Jillian does the news.
That's right. Let me get you guys caught up right now. Starting with this, Israeli politicians want former President Obama to give up his Nobel Peace Prize. This after a bombshell report reveals his administration undermined Hezbollah terrorists. According to Politico, the administration held up federal investigations into drug trafficking and money laundering to ensure the Iran nuclear deal remained on track. Some politicians tell the Jerusalem Post Obama made the Middle East even more hostile. In 2009, he received the Peace Prize for Middle Eastern diplomacy. A soldier jumps out of his truck and into action to save a grandmother dangling from that crashed Amtrak train. Second Lieutenant Robert McCoy watched the train fly into traffic on his way into work in Washington State. He immediately grabbed a tourniquet and CPR mask to save the woman's life.
Her daughter kind of pulled her out backwards. I just reached under her and just kind of got to a point where I could pick her up and just kind of put her down on some form of semi-safe structure.
At least 3 people are dead and 10 seriously hurt following the crash. Dramatic body cam video showing the moment an officer is dragged half a mile by a speeding car.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
Jeez, the officer clinging to the side of the car as the driver peels out of a Florida retirement community. It all started when the cops were called to check on a couple that was passed out in a car with drugs. Authorities say the man woke up, saw the officer, and tried to escape, but the cop was caught in the door frame. He suffered minor injuries. The driver is charged with attempted murder of a law enforcement officer. And how about this? White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders is used to taking tough questions right, but nothing quite like this.
I actually want to ask about UFOs. Several media reports this week disclosed Sorry.
I was going to say, I feel like I already want to pass on this question, given that you've got aliens sitting among you.
The question coming after reports that the Pentagon has been investigating UFOs since 2007. As for the president, Sanders says she'll check in to get his take on extraterrestrials. I believe in them. What do you guys think?
You know, the truth is out there somewhere.
It is. Somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good response. I believe in the truth when we find it.
See, I want to know UFO or no UFO. We're gonna.
Oh, is that the X-Files? That's how they end the show? I never watched it. I have no interest in aliens.
Oh, I
really
do
don't.
so much.
Wait until they arrive.
All right. And then
that video we were showing the other day where the fighter pilots were chasing something out there, a little weird, just saying. All right.
Jillian. Thanks, Jane. Appreciate it. All right, former Attorney General Eric Holder calling it a red line if the president fires Bob Mueller. Just one problem. The president says he's not going to do that. Well, should Holder really be talking about red lines after the Obama administration's experience with it?
Plus, from tools to tech, we've got some great last-minute gifts, including a heated jacket.
That one on the right. Oh,
Skip.
Alexa, amazing.
Good morning. You're coming up.
Bring it.